Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for our regular board meeting. If you wouldn't mind making sure that your phones are on vibrate or turned off. And then join me, please, in a moment of silence. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now open it up for any staff questions the board may have. Commissioner Phillips.
What don't I have a question about? Can we please have an update over the situation with the Northstone parking and the flooding situation?
All right, I think I got Kim lined up for Northstone and got Kevin lined up for flooding. So which one you want first?
Gentleman's choice.
We're going to go with the lady first.
Thank you, because we have been looking into the issue that we've seen. So as far as resurfacing, every year the town annually resurfaced neighborhood streets, and we started four weeks ago. So the first notice went out the last week of March. And what we do is we get a spreadsheet from the contractor. These are the roads we're going to touch next week, weather permitting. Staff goes out and puts signs. Then the contractor comes through a day or two ahead of schedule and tags any cars that might be on the street or leaves a notice if they're not. If there's, they might put it on the mailbox or whatever. And then every week I would send out an advance notice through Nextdoor directly to the neighborhood. And I would list the street names. So somehow there were people, I'm sure in all the developments, but particularly we heard from the Northstone people over the weekend. So we went back and looked, and there are 833 households in Northstone on the Nextdoor platform. That does not mean they saw the notice, but there are 833 homes that are registered with that platform, and that includes almost 1,400 people. So, you know, what I said to the one gentleman was, I'm very sorry that somehow between the signs and the tags and flyers and the notification, they did not receive the notice. The other thing we were wondering is if Good Friday had something to do with it. It was a holiday, people were home versus typically at work. So we've looked into that today. We've tried to figure out what else we can do. We are wrapping up. We have been in Northstone now for 2 weeks instead of just one. But typically the streets, it would take between 5 and 7 business days, weather permitting, for all the work to be done.
Thank you. And maybe, I mean, we don't need to talk about this now, but maybe this is something the communications department, group can pick up to discuss for next steps.
I think so. One of the things that we looked into was the HOA list, which is great if you have an HOA. Not all communities do. Some of the streets that were also done last week in what is considered the Greenfield Park is not necessarily part of an HOA. We also found that there were some information gaps in some of the HOA. So I think we looked at a way that we can try to see where we didn't reach people this time so that we can do better next time.
Thank you so much.
And we are aware of found out this weekend about the issue over on the private alleyway that backs behind Walter Street. We have reached out to that resident today and also the builder that built those homes, and we're going to work towards an amicable solution for everyone. We're working on that.
Any other questions? Commissioner Boone.
Yes, Mr. Roberts. It's been a while, but we finally got the crossing on Gilead Road at Sherwood, and it looks good. I want to say thank you for not only your staff's work, but your due diligence on that project. Thank you.
you, sir.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, we will go on and move to public comments and request presentations. Before we take public comments, we'd like to go ahead and do the presentations for Huntersville 101 graduates. So excited.
I'd like to invite the mayor and Commissioner Boone to come down and assist, please. One of the wonderful things about this job is educating and engaging the community. And I have had the privilege and the blessing to spend the last 7 weeks in class with 30 amazing residents of Huntersville. And we have laughed and we have chuckled and we have bemoaned and we have asked lots of questions. And I'm thankful that you spent your time to learn more about this community that you're a part of. So tonight, it's just a brief ceremony, but for the 30 people who spent 7 weeks, basically 21 hours of your time learning about your community, we thank you. You're wonderful. Thank you. So they are spread out, and quite honestly, I have put you all on the same list. They're used to being morning and afternoon, so they're just having to socialize tonight. And I have tried to find you as you walked in, so if I miss you, I think I know who's not here, and I hope if I miss someone, we will circle back. But so I'm going to start. Actually, I don't see J.D. Belk unless he is out in the lobby. Okay. I'm going to start with Meg Betzel. If you want to stay up here, I'm sorry, we're going to take a group picture. Is Cheryl and Tom, are they out in the lobby? I can't see the lobby. Cheryl, okay. Gatewood Campbell, probably the one that was the most determined to make it through with everything going on, so thank you. Anita Carroll. Rick Carter. Patricia Chun. Robert Coffrin. John Uri, hanging out in the corner. Frank Freeman. Jennifer Gonzalez. Jane Hoffman. Taylor Hutto.
Try to get a picture of Taylor.
John Lee.
I did my best.
Leo Marty.
Look at this one, Gatewood. That is such a good picture of Gatewood.
Rob McGuire.
I'm so proud. I feel like you need
Mary Ann O'Rourke. Susan Stigliano. I don't know which way to go now. Tiffany Sowers. Randy Suggs. Patrick Thomas. Janet Webb.
That's how it starts.
and Doug Williams. I'm looking around to make sure that no one snuck in. We know we have an honorary degree here. We will give, he is here representing his daughter who could not be here, so we will get all the certificates. So I just, again, it takes a lot in our world today to say, I'm going to spend 7 weeks learning about my community, and I'm going to spend 7 weeks with people I don't know. But when I come out of here, I want to be like these folks up here, and I want to be on the commissions, and I want to be an ambassador for our community. And so again, thank you to the wonderful people who spent so much time. It's like sending my family off to school. So you can go now and graduate and do wonderful things in this community. So thank you. So if all of the graduates would meet me in the lobby, we can, that way we won't hold up the rest of the, yes.
Did it. I'll text you that. I'll text you that.
I do have to, as they make their way out, do have to echo Ms. Strickland's comments. The fact that you all took 7 weeks out of your busy lives to come together and learn about our community. Thank you so very much.
They snuck in.
Oh. You just, goodness. I do think that we have a couple of guests from the county commission with us this evening. Commissioner Powell. And I can't tell who you're with. So nice to see you this evening. Thank you for joining us. And Commissioner Brian Hines is former Commissioner Brian Hines is with us this evening. Thank you for joining us as well. He's like, please remember former. All right, now that we've kind of gotten back settled down, our next presentation is from the Mecklenburg County Assessor's Office. Mr. Joyner, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great, Mayor.
You're going to
Pell.
come and tell us that Mecklenburg County is doing well.
Yes. I thought I was going to do a graduation speech there for a while, but y'all must have already talked to them about the reval in their class. They decided not to stay around tonight. I'm still here. Valedictorian. So, Mayor, Town Board, Manager Roberts, thank you for the opportunity to come tonight. As you said, my name is Ken Joyner. I am your Mecklenburg County Assessor and want to come out. We've started our information sessions and we wanted to make sure that our towns were some of our earlier stops. And we do plan to come back later in the fall as we've got more definitive ideas of where the valuations will be going. But we do have some important information to share with you tonight about the 2023 revaluation, just to make sure everyone is aware. With me tonight, I've got Brad Fowler, who is our Assistant Assessor over real property, so the revaluation falls under him as well. So if there are no questions before we get started, I'll go ahead and start the presentation. So the first thing we often get asked is, why does Mecklenburg County do a revaluation? And in North Carolina, under General Statute 105-286, each county in North Carolina must conduct a revaluation at least once every 8 years. And Mecklenburg County had done an 8-year cycle from 2003 until 2011. And they decided at the conclusion of 11, with all of the issues that took place with the reval review and the issues that came out of that, once we completed the 2019, we were going to take the ability of the statute to advance the reval to a shorter. So we've moved that to a 4-year cycle. Some of the reasons you would do that is it helps keep the values closer to current market as far as a date. 4 years is half of that time over an 8-year cycle, and as we saw between 2011 to 2019, there can be large fluctuations and changes. We also spoke at over 220 different venues leading up to the 2019. So we see this as another opportunity to keep our public more educated on the process. And hopefully, as we've seen the market right now, at least we would hope to reduce the likelihood of those large market increases. And I know right now there's still a lot of work to be done on the 2023 revaluation, as we will continue to track sales throughout the 2022 year to see what the market is like. So the purpose of a revaluation is the redistribution of the property tax base. As many of us know, all properties are not going to appreciate at the same rate. So you've got areas in Mecklenburg County that are appreciating at a significantly quicker level than some other pockets of the county will. So as you do this revaluation and bring everybody up to market, you're able to redistribute that tax base and that tax burden across everybody and keep that process based on the North Carolina statutes, where we have to pay based upon the current market value of our property. We at least keep that as close to these fair and equitable assessments as we strive to do. Again, as we said before, try to keep those up to current market levels. And we always like to point out that a revaluation is not a means to increase property tax revenue. In the 2019 reval, Mecklenburg County, the town of Huntersville, everyone is required to go through a revenue neutral tax rate advertisement so that everyone is aware of what that tax rate would be at that level. It is up to the board to establish that rate based upon the current needs of each jurisdiction. I know in 2019, Mecklenburg County went from 82.32 cents per hundred to 61.69 cents. Town of Huntersville, I think, went from around 30.5 cents down to 24. So there, you would expect to see some changes in those tax rates to reflect that the values are increasing. So where are we at in the process right now? Well, Mecklenburg, as we're all aware, continues to grow, and we have almost eclipsed 400,000 real property parcels in the county now. When I got here in 2013, we were right around 360,000. So based on the growth that we've seen over the last 8.5 years, we would expect that by the time we reach January 1, we will probably have eclipsed that 400,000 parcels. People who are not in our business think that a revaluation is you just push a button and everything takes place. There's a lot of work that goes into the revaluation, and we do an initial review of every parcel, looking at the neighborhood and the market area that it sits in. And in that initial process right now, we're at about 89%. We should be wrapping that up this summer, and then we will use those months leading into January 1 to establish where those final values are going to land. So we're well on our way to finishing that initial review and preparing for that final review. Just to give you an idea of that, where that almost 90% is, the areas in blue on the map here are residential properties that have been completed with that initial review. The red areas are commercial areas. So as you can see, a lot of the county has had that initial review. There are some areas, probably some here in Huntersville, that are still in that initial review process. And to date, our median sales price on the areas that we've completed is around $376,000. A median sales ratio, all this does is show, based on the most recent sales within each of the neighborhoods, how our value compares with the sale prices. And right now, we're at 99.6%, which is pretty close to that 100% that we would strive to do. But again, within our process, we don't just take a sales price and put that on those properties that have sold. It's part of that appraisal process where we look at all of the sales within a neighborhood. So I've mentioned market areas and neighborhood, these neighborhood areas, and this is one of the most important parts of a revaluation, is what we call neighborhood delineation, where we are taking a larger area and breaking it down into smaller groups of properties in which to use the sales within those areas to value those properties. So we've got a little map here, looks like a typical neighborhood that you might see. Most of the time, we're going to be following, at least in our newer neighborhoods, what those neighborhood lines look like. Some of the newer neighborhoods you see where you've got smaller homes, maybe at the entrance, larger in the back, there may be multifamily in there. You can end up with multiple market areas within one named neighborhood. But this takes that process and breaks it down. So one thing we really want people to understand is that the sales that we're using are those within the neighborhood of the properties that we're valuing. We're not using parcels in Cornelius to value Pineville or Huntersville or anywhere else. We're not using Charlotte. So the values here in Huntersville are based on the market and the sales here in Huntersville. So we talk about these market transactions. Just to give you an idea, as we went into the 2019 reval, the three years leading into it, 2016, 17, and 18, we were right around 25,000 sales per year. Coming out of 2019 and now looking at 2023, we have a little over 25,000 looking at 19, 20, and 21. And in 22, I think I've already heard we're around 10,000 sales already for this year. So we're on that same pace. So we've got a lot of property transactions that we can use to complete these valuations. And these are just the sales that we've deemed to be arm's length transactions. There are significantly more that are not what we would call a qualified sale. Another item that we like to mention as we're out in the public is the Citizens Review Committee. Mecklenburg County appoints this group. This is not a statutory process. This is something that Mecklenburg County has chosen to do. And we've got a 9-member panel. These individuals are highly qualified. Most of them have some type of real estate experience, whether it's on the financing side, the sales side, or the appraisal side. And we actually have one of our members here tonight standing in the back of the room. Thank you for coming, sir. And these individuals, we walk them through that revaluation process and give them an understanding of how our office operates, what the steps are in a revaluation, We started those meetings in March. We held one in March. We've held one previously this month, and we've got another one tomorrow night. And at the end of this process, as we go forth to the Board of Commissioners with a schedule of values that will be used to value all of the properties, those final valuations, this board will make a recommendation based upon these meetings and how they feel about the process. So it's a very important step that, again, is beyond what the statutory requirements are. Purposes committee, our overall operations, review the revaluation process, talk to us about the appraisal methods, study the statistics, monitor our progress, and as I said, make that final recommendation to the board. Another item that we like to point out, and especially when we're at the towns, because we'll have some of our other citizens here, and our communications plan is very important part of the revaluation, getting out and having the opportunity to speak. So many times we'll pick up neighborhood associations, civic clubs out of our events here in the towns. So we've really worked hard. We've branded our website. We've got video messages out there. I think we've got a list here shortly of some of the presentations we've done so far and where we're heading to. We've got the revaluation brochure online. You can also, the presentation that you see tonight is available online for anyone that would like to see that. So here's what the brochure, at least some of that information. It's very similar to the one that we used in 2019, again, trying to keep things as consistent as possible. Our website, you see down in the bottom right corner, reval.mecnc.gov. A lot of information out there to help people understand the process better. It talks a little bit about what is a property revaluation, questions that you may have, and it starts the understanding of the appeals process, which is a very important part of the revaluation, is that we have the ability to make our values as fair and equitable by working with our customers as they've got concerns, making sure that we have all the property characteristics for each property correct. So our customers have a very important role because we're doing, as we said, 400,000 valuations. I can guarantee you there are mistakes in our database, and we want those corrected. So it's a very important part of the process, and I would hope that everyone here tonight will take a moment and go to the website and look up that information. And we'll cover that, the website, and how to use that here just shortly. So we had a few presentations in '21, but as we've come out of the pandemic, things are starting to pick up a little more. So from January to April, you can see we've made quite a few presentations, and then here are some that are scheduled, and there's one that was signed up just tonight that's not on here for May 3rd. So we are out and about in the public. As we said, we'll be back in each of the municipalities again in the fall as well, and trying to get this information out. So talking about values and just trying to ensure that everybody understands, right now when you look at Realtor.com and other sites, you see that Charlotte, Mecklenburg County is one of the hottest markets in the nation right now. It's the third, as far as markets, it's the number 3 market based on Realtor.com. So we want people to understand values are increasing. But as we said earlier, it does not automatically mean that your taxes will increase. So it's an important part of that process. So as we talked about the website, just got a few screens here where we can show when you go to MEC or to reval.mecnc.gov, you'll find the Find a Property here. And here you can put in your name, your address, if you know your parcel number, but most people don't know that exact number, the name or address, you can get into the system. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull up your parcel. You see the front view, you see the aerial view, the appraised value there, the address. Then it's going to provide additional information on the property. On the right-hand side there, you see a small sketch of the property. You see structural elements. Again, we want people to make sure that our information is correct. There's another map there showing where it is within a neighborhood and additional information there. There's also some tabs above the overview there where you can go in and get additional information, print your property record card. So there's lots of information out there. One of those is Comper. And this is a tool that we added for 2019 where you can click on Comper and it will show you comparable sales within the neighborhood that we have established. So as you see on the left-hand side of the screen here, there's the red box there that represents the property that is being looked at. And then the yellow and green dots are all comparable sales. And you can see on the side there, it's got a picture of each house, what it sold for, and comparable information so you can look at that. On this one, theoretically, we picked 3 comparables there. They have turned green once you click on those. And those comparables can be printed out so that you've got a comparable report of your property and 3 other sales. So even if someone were to question their value, but maybe not have been aware of what's going on in the market, we want everyone to have the ability to see what is going on in their market. So again, it's a very important part of the process is that education and transparency that we want to share. So again, here you've got some of the information. It's a little easier to read. Distance from the subject, the sales prices, the sales date, finished area, so you can see size concerns, number of full baths, number of bedrooms, exterior wall, building type, and more information there. But again, we want people to understand how we establish the values and allow them to find their own comfort where that value is. They also may determine by looking at some of these sales that my home is in a neighborhood where a lot of them have been renovated, and we may be basing it based on the sales of other properties that have newer renovations. So they may be able to share with us photos of the inside of the property so that we can understand the level of depreciation that needs to be on that property. So it's a great tool. If you come out of the Comper and you're still concerned with your value, as we send out the notices, we will do what we would call an informal review process first. During 2019, we had 32,000 informal reviews where we worked with our customers one-on-one through the Modria process. You can do this online 24/7. We also take walk-ins, we take phone calls, but trying to make it the most convenient way for whatever our customers' needs are. This will be coming back in the fall, but within Modria, you'll be communicating directly with the appraiser you're working with. You can download documents in there for them to review, an appraisal report, maybe an engineering report on the property, photos. You can ask questions, they can ask questions, and it's just a almost like a chat room where you can communicate in a private setting. So we're really excited about this tool. We're doing some enhancements to it right now, and we would expect in the fall to have this product back up well before those notices are mailed. And then lastly, anytime we're out in the public, we like to talk about the statutory programs that are offered in North Carolina that the counties can utilize to help people with their tax burden. So the first one is our, as it's called in the statute, the elderly or disabled exclusion. Within this exclusion, we can remove the first $25,000 in value or 50%. You can see that this statute's been around for a while. In Mecklenburg County, 50% is going to be that greater total in almost every situation. But if you're the applicant is the deeded owner as of January 1, they're a North Carolina resident, 65 years or older, or totally and permanently disabled, and their income for 2021 was $31,900 or less, they qualify for the program. We want everyone that qualifies for this program to be in there. We all know the cost of living here in Mecklenburg County is higher than some other parts of the state. The Board of County Commissioners in the past has made it a priority to try to get that income level increased. It moves at the Social Security increase each year level. It's been established by the state, so hopefully at some point we'll be able to move that amount up and get more people qualified for that program. But if you do know anyone, we can come out to a faith community, a neighborhood association, the town, and we can bring some individuals and we can sit down with people during the day and try to help them with the applications even if that's necessary. So we really want to make this process as simple for them as it can be. The application period, again, is January 1 through June 1st, but there are mechanisms after June 1st. I can't approve an application again that year, but we can take it to our Board of Equalization and Review and get that approved. So as we tell people, apply, I would rather tell 20 people no than to find out that one person could have been in the program for 1, 2, 3, or 4 years and they didn't apply. So very important process. The second one is another one that I would love to see some changes to and increases, but it's our disabled veterans homestead exclusion. With this one, the first $45,000 of assessed value is removed. Again, has to be the deeded owner as of January 1, a North Carolina resident, honorably discharged and 100% disabled, or receive benefits for specially adapted housing. With this one, there is no age or income requirement. So again, we want those that qualify to be in this program. So lastly, we'll just hit some important dates. As you can see, we're in the middle of that community engagement right now. We're working with our Citizens Review Committee. By December, we hope to have those final values completed. Next January, we will be mailing the notices to our customers. We will begin immediately that informal appeals period. Then in May, the formal appeals process ends as far as the application process. You've got from the date of the notice till sometime in May. We've not set that date yet, but it will be done well before the notices go out so we can let people know. And then the bills that we're discussing now will be the bills that are mailed next summer in July of 2022. 23, not the ones this summer. So just want to make sure everybody understands that process. So at this point, I'll open it up to questions.
Board, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Joyner? Commissioner Partee?
How are you doing? And thank you for that presentation. To date, how many delinquent parcels do you have on the rolls?
Say that again, sir.
To date, how many delinquent parcels are there on the rolls in Mecklenburg County?
That would be a great question for the Office of the Tax Collector. I can get that information for you. We'll go back, if Brad will write that one down, we'll get that back to
Specifically in
the
Huntersville.
manager so that important information.
In addition to that, the presentation was beautiful, but how are you going to outreach to those adults, senior citizens, and disabled who are not on the computer or not tech savvy?
Well, we are looking at how we can reach all of our customers right now and trying to ensure that we reach as many as possible. We'll work with the faith community. We'll work with the senior citizens groups, especially those with the county through Parks and Rec. We'll work with our towns if there's areas that they can identify that we need to reach. The county's public information group, their community engagement person is the one that schedules our appointments and makes sure Brad and I are going to where we need to be each day. So we've got a lot of mechanisms out there. But again, the Modria process is convenient, but if you're not tech savvy, it's not going to help you. So we've still got the ability, we'll mail people applications if they can't print those out at their home. We take appeal forms that way. We will be holding town halls in each of the commissioner districts for the county once the notices go out. We have a lot of walk-ins. I remember in 2019, there were a couple of faith communities that actually used their church vans and brought people to our office so they could sit down with someone. So we try to make it as flexible as possible, having the best technology that we can find, but trying to not lose that one-on-one customer service that we want to provide as well.
Thank you. Just one last question. Is there a safety net for those individuals, those seniors or elderly who are tax delinquent, that they can have assistance or get assistance?
Right. The county is limited in what the state allows as far as that homestead exclusion. Mecklenburg County, through our Department of Community Resources, has a homes program as well, helping our Mecklenburg homeowners with economic assistance, where they can provide some grant funds to help individuals. It is income-based, but it's based more on AMI versus just a number that was picked out of the air 15 years ago and moved up. So that program does not have an age requirement, but there is an income requirement. It's based on family size as well. I know that the city of Charlotte, for their residents, has an aging in place program as well. So there are a few tools throughout the county to assist. I know from talking with the tax collector's office that the most important thing someone can do is communicate. Ignoring the bill doesn't help. That will trigger them to start their processes. But communication, letting someone know, trying to establish some type of a payment plan is always important. So I would always encourage people to not dread that bill, but to, when it comes out in July, if you've got a financial situation, start working with them then. If you call them in February after it's delinquent, it's a lot harder to do than it is in July.
Any other questions? Oh, Commissioner Kidwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great presentation. Can you make this available to the board? You went through a lot in what it would be a short period of time to try to digest. And also, the two programs that you mentioned, if this board really wants to make an impact locally, we should look at adopting that here in the town of Huntersville, or something very similar.
Some type of an age in place?
Yep.
I agree.
Great comment, and yes, as you got the presentation tonight, and the one on our website is updated monthly as those numbers increase. We can put you guys on a trigger and email that one up here, so the board will have that one if they would like.
Commissioner Kovacs?
I had a question. When you were showing how the boundaries are drawn, you use like a traditional newer neighborhood. How does that work for older neighborhoods or where houses are dispersed? How do you decide where those lines are drawn?
We will, let me go back to that slide real quick, and I can maybe point out a few things that I might not have as we went through there. Those newer cookie-cutter neighborhoods, as I like to call them, are much easier to delineate. But what we would do in these older neighborhoods where you can't see that a new neighborhood has started is we will track those sales, and we'll look at what a price per square foot from one block to the next is and try to establish where there is a delineation, where that price per square foot is going to change, and establish those other neighborhoods. With the advent of GIS, Geographic Information System, we can overlay maps, we can overlay zoning, we can overlay sales, and it really is an incredible tool in going through that process and establishing where those boundaries will be. We also look at issues with appeals from the prior reval, and in that initial review that we go through, we continue to create new neighborhoods where we saw where maybe there were higher appeal levels than others. We go in and recognize that there needed to be more delineation. I think we've got about 3,500 separate market areas in Mecklenburg County. But those older neighborhoods, your rural areas, those are the most difficult. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Munger?
Yeah, just a quick clarification on the tax exemption, because I want to follow up on Commissioner Kidwell's point and just make sure I'm understanding everything. On the tax exemption, when they apply for a tax exemption, that exempts them from the Mecklenburg County property taxes and the Huntersville taxes?
Yes, sir. That exclusion removes 50% of your value. So if your value is 250, your value for tax purposes will be 125. So any rates that are across that, whether it's rural and it's the LESD, the police district, the fire district, all of those would be reduced.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify because I wasn't sure. I knew Commissioner Kidwell, I know where your heart is, and I think we're there-ish, but I'm open to more.
Commissioner Boone, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you very much. Ken, great presentation.
Thank you.
You still live in Huntersville?
Well, I've had some life changes.
Okay.
And as I was telling someone earlier, I'm living in an apartment now. So
Okay, well, let me go ahead
I'm
and
very happy.
let me go ahead and ask you my question
For
now.
asking.
I get 2 or 3 calls a month from people saying that the house next door just sold and now it's a rental property. How does that affect the value of their home?
Well, again, for our purposes, we are looking at what those properties, those transactions are in those neighborhoods. There's been a lot of discussions over the corporate housing and those purchases here in Mecklenburg County. I was on one of the websites the other day, and I think Mecklenburg and Charlotte areas, the third highest ownership group for this for that real estate investment trust, and those are actually the corporations. They're based on income tax laws and how they can make money for investors. So those sales are part of the market, so we would be looking at all of those transactions. If a neighborhood were to have issues with rental properties and those sales, excuse me, if those sales began to decline, you would actually see, from one revaluation, a reduction. But right now, what we're seeing is that different areas are growing at different rates, but they all seem to be appreciating right now. So that rental property next door will not affect your value unless it affects the sales taking place within that neighborhood.
Commissioner Phillips?
If we have organizations, churches, et cetera, up here that may need to speak with you, have you come out, what's the best way to do that and to get them in communication sooner rather than later?
Well, I know that Manager Roberts, Ms. Huffman, they all have all of our information, or at least mine. I can, if someone responds to me, I usually reply back and copy our community engagement individual with the county, and we just let him handle it from that point. But if you get that information to some of your administrative team here, they'll get that to us and we'll get that set up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Joyner, thank you so very much for coming and sharing with us your presentation. I learn something every time you come, so I greatly appreciate that. And I am sure that I've written down some things myself, identifying areas where seniors may need assistance. I think that's something that we can do, and then get in touch with your office.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
I
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
and we'll see you in the fall, if not.
Thank you. Up next is Ms. Rose Williams. She's the Executive Director for the North Carolina League of Municipalities. Welcome.
Thank you for having me very, very much. Thanks to all the commissioners for welcoming me here tonight. My name is Rose Vaughn Williams, and I'm the Executive Director of the North Carolina League of Municipalities since December 1 of 2021. I'm delighted to be with you here tonight and speak very briefly, and I've got my eye on the time as well, a little bit about the league. We have cities of all different sizes and shapes in North Carolina, 552 cities and towns. And just about all of those cities and towns, except about 5 or 6, are members of the League of Municipalities. Our cities vary in size. As you can see, the majority of our cities in North Carolina are in the mid-range. We have only 9 that are over that 100,000 mark. But of all the population in North Carolina, where do people live? They live in cities. And cities are the economic engines of the state. As you know, 75% of all retail sales take place in cities. But you only get to keep 36% of that now that the tax man is gone. The rest of it goes to the state. So you only keep 36% of that. It's where the jobs are, it's where people live. As you know, cities maintain the roads, 22,000 miles within their city borders. And just about every commercial and resident in North Carolina benefits from a municipal water system, which is important. You know the services that cities offer, the majority on the left, fewer on the right, but still many. You are very fortunate to have the council manager form of government in North Carolina. Not all cities benefit from having a manager, and we wish all did. The league has been in existence. It was formed in 1908. It was formed by a group of municipal leaders who decided their voices were stronger when they were heard together. Later, they worked together to try to pave the roads in North Carolina. You can't have an economy, you can't have a state without paved roads. And this is a sign you see in Charlotte. So these are some signs from history. They remain the same today. This is a group gathered at the Legislative Building for a press conference training we do for police officers, training we do for our water systems to keep your workers safe, help pass inspections, and gathering and learning up top is represented. It's a large part of what we do is education for you, municipal leaders, for staff, how to serve better, best practices, how to know more about what you're doing. We can meet you on the level where you are. If you've been in office for many years, if you're new, you want refreshers, you want you want a long class, whatever you need the most. We offer insurance and risk management for those policies to help you stay safe, to help police officers police safely and drive safely, firefighters to be safe. We have a chief's committee. Chief Hoyle was a member of our board of directors, who's here today, and of course, Mayor Bales is on our board of directors and is chairman of our legislative policy committee for the next biennium. We are a member-driven organization for advocacy, which means our members across the state all have the opportunity to participate. And one thing the pandemic did, it made us make all that electronic starting out. So you can weigh in on your ideas electronically. You can vote electronically on what these legislative priorities are. Primarily, of course, we always keep those core municipal principles that we advocate for, which is to give you the right of local control, for you to be able to do what you think is in the best interest of your city or town. And that's what we fight for the most, because what works best here in Huntersville might not be what works best on Topsail Island or in Blowing Rock or in Raleigh as well. Advocacy and lobbying is a lot of what we do. For when I first came here, I was the Associate Executive Director of Public and Government Affairs over the lobbying team. You have our team in-house, which is communications. It is information with the press, talking and making sure everyone understands what legislation does, what cities are trying to do, what the purpose is behind what cities are doing. So oftentimes, it's not just knocking on the doors inside the legislative building. We certainly have a team that does that. We also have contract lobbyists who do that, a number of those. We also represent you on the federal side. These past 2 years, in my time at least, we've never done as much of that as we have in the past 2 years, putting you in touch with your legislators. If I can say so, a lot of what we do, we read every bill that comes out. So you're going to have 1,000 bills filed a session. There will be over 200 to 300 that affect municipalities in some way. We read all those, we curate that, we get that information to you in a condensed way that is helpful to you and to your staff. And of those, we have to redirect some of those. We have to be sure that you're informed. But as they go through the legislative process, we want to make sure you're informed of what's happening, because that's when the danger happens, if you will, many times unintentionally, that a piece of legislation will impact a city or cities across the state negatively, and it's not intended and people don't understand. The legislators want to hear. So if we're able to give you that information, you can better serve your city, you can talk in a more informed way with your legislators and your constituents to let them know what's going on. And that's a large part of what we do, is getting you that information on a weekly basis. We also represent you before regulatory bodies. As you know, water and other environmental permits are very expensive and a very costly part of what cities do. We represent you before the Environmental Review Commission and other commissions of regulatory nature in Raleigh and in Washington. Legal consulting. If your lawyer has a question, we help draft ordinances, we consult. We also participate sometimes in appellate cases, particularly if they have a statewide import. The Carthage case from several years ago was pending in the North Carolina Supreme Court. At the same time, legislation was pending in the General Assembly, which would have cost cities and towns millions. I think for Union County alone, it was estimated to be $80 million, and that was a huge effort. I mentioned education and training, a chance to get together with others across the state who do what you do, whether it's at our conference, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. So we have a lot of education from the American Rescue Plan Act to more mundane things that have been around and are not so unprecedented, but that you need to talk with other people from other cities who do what you do, and to get information from national experts who will be coming, and a chance to network. So that, I talked about the insurance that we offer. I'm going to be very quick to go through, talked about legislation. When we support a bill or oppose a bill or a portion of a bill, we're going to give you the information you need about that bill, of the talking points that are usable for you and for you to know how it affects your city. We're going to do the calculations for Huntersville. How is that piece of legislation going to affect you? We do other calculations and revenue reports constantly, or at least quarterly, to give you an annual report. What is the sales tax coming in from Raleigh? What is that going to be for you as you do your budget here in Huntersville? What are other cities paying their employees? And we understand now, as you do, there's a wage inflation going on right now unlike anything we've ever seen. You want to pay your employees similar to what other cities in similar circumstances are paying. We have that data among others. We've worked on a lot of issues in the past. Land use in a large developing area like yours is going to be very important. We have a very significant American Rescue Plan campaign going on. When I say campaign, we are building an entire arm of the league. We're devoting employees to provide information for you on that legislation, how to use it the best way, the highest and best use, how we can help you combine your efforts with other legislation that's coming down, other grants that are available to maximize what you have, how to keep it legal, how to keep it within the state law and within the federal law. You still have the restrictions of state law on that ARPA money that some states don't have. So you might hear about some things other states are doing that we can't do here in North Carolina. We want to help you do that. Employment liability consulting, sometimes when there are personnel issues that are especially important, you want to treat your employee right, you also have to follow the law. We offer consulting to help you through those times as well. Financial and operational consulting. We have field staff throughout the state who don't come in and sit behind the computer and take over, but can consult on an issue or help you with that. They're former retired city managers, chief financial officers, chief budget officers of cities around the state. I mentioned some of these things. I think communications. I practiced law for many years and served as a trial judge for many years before starting a lobbying career and coming to the league. And I always told my clients, information is power, information is peace. And what we want you to have is information in your hands through social media, through a bulletin every week, through a league letter, so that you know what's going on in the national realm, in the state realm, and in other municipalities, so that you can serve your constituents the best that you can. And that is our mission. And several years ago, we did a strategic plan that's really about cities. Where do cities need to be in 2030, and what can we do to help them get to where they need to be in 2030? And that is where we keep our mission. That's Michael Lazara speaking there at one of our press conferences. He's now a member of the state Senate and a great champion for cities and towns. He was president of the league 2 years ago, maybe it was 3 years ago now. Very glad to have Mayor Bales. This is an event that I'm showing where we gathered legislators with their municipal members from around the state, back when we did that in person, for a town and state dinner, a chance to break bread together in Raleigh. You see your legislators here and may have a very good relationship with them. They very much appreciate you making a trip to Raleigh to sit down and break bread with them there. And we had the issues curated, if you will, and filtered then to be able to talk the best we could, and there was great feedback on that. We have regional legislative meetings. We're doing congressional meetings now around the state as well, and we can help you with your questions that you have with your legislators as we go. We have different groups. This is a mayor's group that we have meeting as well to help mayors get together with mayors. That's the North Carolina Mayors Association that I showed. There's the mayor of Concord. And I hope that was helpful. I want to see if there's anything that I did not say that would be helpful to you to know, but we're very glad to work with you and want to answer any questions that you have and help you. We're glad to have the county commissioners here today. This is a great relationship. The class that you had before, they could have taught what I had. That is one of the best things that I've seen. That's fantastic. Cities have a challenge of letting their residents know what they do and the value they bring, whether it's people taking for granted that you can have a water system that works and you can rely on. It's not the most sexy things sometimes, but you can't have a city without it, and you can't have public health without it. It's the most important work that cities do, and you're chosen to do that. We're grateful. Thank you, Mayor Bales.
Thank you. And I would like to also let you know that Commissioner Phillips also is serving on the Legislative Policy Committee as well. So
Excellent.
thank you to her for
thank you. I did
giving of
not
her
know that.
time.
Welcome.
And I will say that especially through COVID, the information that was flowing between the league and the board members was critical as we were all trying to figure out what was going on And the league really did step up, and they had those advocacy calls every Friday where you could just jump on and get an update. And that was important when we were all siloed in our homes, sitting in front of our computers. So you found a way to pull us all together. So thank you for that. I would like to open it up, if you don't mind, for questions from the board members. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Williams? Commissioner Boone?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. It costs the town of Huntersville about $35,000 a year. In the 560 towns, does everybody pay the same amount?
They don't. It is a formula based on population.
Are we in the top tier, bottom tier, Huntersville?
I would want to look at that and tell you exactly before I told you anything, so I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
If you wouldn't mind getting that back to us, I would greatly appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so very much for coming.
Back on the road to Raleigh, I'm grateful to be a part. Very, very
Thank you. So we are now going to go to our public comments. Ms. B.J. Caldwell, you are first up. Thank you for joining us this evening. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Betty Jane B.J. Caldwell, address 14521 New Haven Drive in Huntersville, North Carolina, and thank you so much for having me. I'm glad that I can come and feel comfortable saying whatever I have to say. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, but it's what I need to say. After years of being under the gun, residents of Pottstown had to yield to the approval of the 40-year extension of the demolition landfill. This area in East Huntersville has already been gentrified by being adjacent to Vermilion development. But not so quietly can we remain to the expansion of new gentrification that includes 5 streets leading from the heart of our community into Valleja Village. This urban development has no similarities with Pottstown. We cried out in protest and called attention to this fact to all powers that be, but they stood quietly with us, helpless too. With the war in Ukraine raging on to the 2nd month, Pottstown residents are praying for those under the guns of Russian aggression. We are like the people, outnumbered and outgunned. We are fighting on 3 fronts: more gentrification by Bowman Development, a 15-year stalemate on the selling of the historic Torrance Lytle School, and about to take on the responsibility of providing programming for community use of Huntersville Rosenwald School Number 2 for Black children, the 3rd Tuesday of each month. And tomorrow night, I will be there, and I invite you to come if you want to know more about Rosenwald schools, especially that one where I was in the 1st grade in 1952. Let me be clear, we are grateful for Park and Rec and the board's past support of our quest to make it a rental again. Like the president of Ukraine who needs more support, Pottstown needs more support too. And we are pushing back with all that we have at our disposal, and we need more assistance. Now, quite often someone will make the remark about BJ, who does she think she is? Well, my response to that is this. Most recognize me as BJ, but my time on earth is a little deeper than that. I am a little old woman warrior in human form that the ancestors used to bring messages to the people on earth. Thank you so much for my time. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ms. Caldwell. Ms. Caldwell? Ms. Caldwell, what time tomorrow night?
It's at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Thank you. Amy Hallman is next up. Ms. Hallman, as you come, would you mind stating your name and your address for the record? And you have 3 minutes.
Amy Hallman, 100 Cambridge Road. You know that I'm a proponent for preservation and for promoting our history as much as we can. I don't presume to know what's best for Pottstown, but I do have one idea, and I ran it by a few of my friends there who know I'm speaking on this topic. While Pottstown is included on the East Huntersville Small Area Plan, Pottstown truly deserves its own community plan. I'm not saying throw $100,000 to its study. You may not want to test this committee with your new idea to remove names from applications. But one of the oldest and most underserved communities in our town deserves our sincere attention. Yes, there are recommendations from white people outside to do what Smithville is doing and start a coalition. I'm not sure anyone who's saying that has truly studied Pottstown or understands that starting a coalition is a little harder than snapping one's fingers. Perhaps there is a coalition to be started, but Smithville has had years in this, has had a buy-in from its town and county officials, and millions of dollars in support for it. The dynamics within Pottstown are a little different than Smithville right now. While there's always something to learn, without some empathy, without some assistance, without some buy-in, and without some time, any progress will be lost. St. Philip's Church on Delwood dates back to at least 1899. Last month, you voted to declare Rosenwald School No. 2 a historic landmark, and this can be the beginning. With cooperation from the county, we could establish a more complete plan that includes Torrance Lytle and other aspects determined by a real study. In the 2007 East Huntersville Small Area Plan, it dedicated 3 paragraphs to the entire community of Pottstown, while it did give an entire page to Torrance Lytle School. Admittedly, it does say to develop like scale and size 1 to 1.5 story homes. It should be acknowledged in 2022 that a reputable plan, a thoughtful plan, can't simply include one single resident from Pottstown surrounded by all these governmental and developmental white people telling our oldest African American community what it needs. Let's allow someone who does not plan to develop within the neighborhood be the contributor to this plan, nor have the say on what should be there. I'm asking more than the board to make this possible. If not, development will cut an irreparable chasm through it, and it will be on all of us. Please consider establishing a committee to study Pottstown community and its absolute place in our town. The previous speech on neighborhood delineation shows you that it is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holman. So next up is Rachel Swift and Jackson Thompson. And it's my understanding that Ms. Janelle Harris is here, and she is giving you her 3 minutes? Is that correct?
No.
No, sorry, they were stuck together, so, so you get your 3 minutes here in just a moment.
If they're fine to go in on the tail end of mine, because I won't. All right, thank you. Hi, everybody, I'm Rachel Swift. I reside at 13021 Central Avenue. Good evening, fellow commissioners, county commissioners. Thank you for coming, and our fellow neighbors of Huntersville. As the Vice Chair of North Mecklenburg Move Makers, I am here inviting you to Pottstown's Bulk Pickup Day, which is May 21st, 2022, from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. Myself, along with Janelle Harris and Commissioners Kovac and Kidwell, have heard the neighborhood's need to help residents with this issue. I was able to speak with Bobby Williams of the town, and he was able to secure 2 dumpsters from Waste Management for our use. Many of our residents are elderly and need some help clearing bigger items out of their home and trash in land that has not been developed, to get some of that trash out to help with beautification. We are now looking for volunteers to help with these efforts, and we're hoping that you're able to join us May 21st. You can sign up via Sinus Genius with the email North Mecklenburg Movemakers at yahoo.com.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Would you mind repeating that sign up again?
Go to NMEC Movemakers at Yahoo. You'll use that in the search engine on sign up.
NMEC Move Makers.
Hello, my name is Zamir Stevenson. I live at 13201 Central Ave. I just wanted to let the board know that I love living in the Pottstown community. Came to live with my aunt from New Jersey, and since I moved to Pottstown, I've met a lot of nice people. I have made tons of friends.
Hello, my name is Jackson Thompson, and I live at 13021 Central Avenue. And I just wanted you guys to know why I love the Pottstown community. I love the Pottstown community because I like going to the Waymer Center and the park with my family and friends.
Thank you. It's not as easy as it looks to get up there and speak into that microphone, and you two did fabulous. And Miss Janelle Harris, as you come, if you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, board and all in attendance. My name is Janelle Harris. I live at 14111 Holbrooks Road in Pottstown, and I'm the chairwoman of North Mecklenburg Move Makers. I am thankful for the new momentum our neighborhood seems to be picking up on, and I'm dedicated to seeing the equality and prosperity abundantly evident in our community. I also want to thank the advocates for the David B. Waymer Center and the Mecklenburg County officials who hired me. I am happy to serve as a liaison to the community and the gym facility. Our next Pottstown monthly community meeting is Wednesday, April 20th at 6 p.m. at the Delwood Center at 508 Delwood Drive. Commissioners Amber Kovacs and Rob Kidwell have been very helpful by coming to our neck of the woods and joining local organizations with other residents and listening to our concerns. We have been able to see changes in our area since our first meeting back in February 23rd, 2022, like bigger stop signs in our community. We appreciate you and hope you continue making a difference with us. The Four Seasons inaugural softball tournament to benefit Pottstown community will also be on May 21st, 2022. They will be raising funds and making a donation at 6 p.m. at the David B. Waymer Field. They are providing Forever Young Barbecue to give our volunteers from the pickup day meals. And we are so thankful that the longtime staple of neighborhood baseball teams and games are using this opportunity to give back to the community they've been in for so long. And I also want to thank members of the board and the previous board for appointing me to the Downtown Plan Steering Committee. I am aware that Pottstown is not part of downtown, but I do know that public input surveys and results, the public input survey results and committee involvement sessions show that there is a desire for more consideration to be given to the preservation and revitalization of Pottstown. I do feel also that there is a need for the town board and the community commissioners, the county commissioners, to allow for community leaders, vested residents, and a staff dedicated to the planning of the future of Pottstown. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. So we are now going to move to agenda changes. Are there any agenda changes this evening? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion to adopt the agenda, and I have a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none?
I like it.
Just mood lighting, that's right. Oh, it's going back down. Well, we'll work with it. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt consent agenda?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none? Give me just a moment. There are no public hearings this evening. I know we are all thankful for that. And I am trying to get to my, all right. We are at consider decision on petition R21-17. Mr. Richards, how are you?
Great, yourself?
Good, thank you.
All righty. At this time, I'd like to enter my staff report to the record. Just a quick recap. This is R2117, the Gilead Road Mixed-Use Project. This is a rezoning from neighborhood residential to traditional neighborhood district, conditional district. And this is for about 3.8 acres for single-family townhomes and up to 19,000 square feet of commercial. The planning board recommended approval unanimously at their last meeting, and the staff has come to a position of support of all four of their modifications, including modification number 4, which is the internal landscaping. The developer has offered to plant as many trees on site as possible, and we will work with them as we go through the construction documents to make sure we're not getting pipes or drainage things in the way, and we will mitigate the remaining trees. With that being said, we are in a position to support this project, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, before we do questions, is there a motion on the floor?
Ma'am, I've got a motion.
Commissioner Boone.
Thank you. Petition R21-17, in considering the proposed rezoning application, R21-17 Gilead Road Mixed Use, the town board recommends approval based on the plan being consistent with the Huntersville zoning ordinance, Article 11.4.7D, 11.4.7E, and the Huntersville 2040 Community Plan Policies, LU 2.1, 5.1, 5.3, 6.2, 6.3, 7.1, 8.1, 8.2, LV 2.3, DT 1.3, and DT 11.1. It is reasonable in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance because the zoning ordinance is consistent with the envisioned uses of the development pattern set forth in the 2040 Community Plan and the 2006 Downtown Master Plan. The town board further recommends approval of 4 modifications. 1, buffer yard. 2, rear setback. 3, building height, all of which are in keeping with the spirit of the ordinance, therefore supported. The town board is inclined to recommend approval of modification 4, front and rear yard trees, and the town board supports the staff request to continue discussion to explore options for mitigation. The approval is contingent upon the application addressing all outstanding staff comments.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and I have a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much, Mr. Richards. We will now move to the quasi-judicial hearing. Yes.
Before we begin, I would like to ask for a board member to recuse me from the quasi-judicial hearing. As a town commissioner, it is my duty to speak to citizens, whether they're on the developer side or the public side. And that being said, I would not be able to make a fair and impartial decision on this case.
And this is the one, the conduct of evidentiary hearing and consider decision on Hill Street subdivision? All right. Commissioner Munger.
Motion to recuse Commissioner Kidwell.
Is there a second? Second. There is a second. All those in favor? Thank you. Give me just a moment. Mr. Pete, I am pulling out my handy dandy.
I'm ready for it.
You're ready? Here we go. This hearing is a quasi-judicial hearing on the application submitted for
the Hill Street subdivision Phase 3 to subdivide .401 acres into 6 townhomes. Quasi-judicial hearings are evidentiary in nature. Only parties with standing, including the applicant, property owner, local government, and individuals who can show they will suffer special damages, have the right to participate fully in the hearing. Special damages must be particularized, separate, and distinct from damages to the public at large. Special damages are a fact-specific inquiry. While proximity may bear weight in the determination of special damages, proximity in and of itself is insufficient to grant standing. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Other individuals may, but are not required to be, allowed to speak as a witness. However, they will not be allowed to participate fully as a party, such as by questioning other witnesses or by calling other persons to testify. Witnesses must swear or affirm their testimony. General witness testimony is limited to facts, not personal preferences or opinions. Certain topics require expert witnesses, including projections about impacts on property values and traffic impacts. Individuals providing expert opinion testimony must be qualified as experts and provide the factual evidence upon which they base their expert opinion. Mere conclusionary testimony, lacking the foundation of experts' opinion, is insufficient to establish the existence or non-existence of a fact or conclusion. The board must base quasi-judicial decisions upon competent material and substantial evidence in the record. Competent evidence is evidence that is sufficiently trustworthy and reliable, and that is legally fit and acceptable for consideration by the board. Speculative, irrelevant, or vague evidence, non-expert opinions as to something that requires an expert, and non-expected hearsay evidence will likely not be competent evidence. Material evidence is evidence that shows that the standards will or will not be met. Evidence is substantial if it is relevant and regarded by a reasonable person as sufficient to support a specific conclusion. Speculation, unsubstantiated fears of the community, or vague assertions do not constitute substantial evidence. Quasi-judicial hearings are constrained by the standards in the ordinance and the facts presented. If there is a recusal, which we have had one already tonight, it is the policy of this board that a recused member shall step down from the dais and be excused from the room. The board member may return for the next matter. I guess my question is there anyone else that would like to be recused from this decision this evening? When the parties to this case have rights for any ex parte communication to be disclosed. Ex parte communication is any communication about the case outside of the hearing that may email communications as well as conversations with parties, staff, or the general public. Does any board member have any ex parte communications to disclose? Seeing none, we will now move and proceed with the hearing. So, Mr. Pete, who are our applicants this evening?
Mr. Bowman from Hill Street, excuse me.
And
Bowman LLC.
who all needs to be sworn in this evening?
Just Mr. Bowman and myself.
Okay. And is the Bible there? Thank you. See if I get this right. I think you got it right for me. Thank you very much. This Bible's heavy. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. I'll give that back to you. All right, so now we're at the staff update.
Okay, I'd like to enter the staff report into the record. And this is a request to subdivide to create 6 townhome lots. We're at the corner of Hill Street and Huntersville Concord Road. The property is zoned neighborhood residential and also traditional neighborhood development overlay as part of the larger Vermillion development. This particular property you see in the red box is to the right or south. You can see that there are phases 1 and 2. This is a continuation of that. And the rest of the staff report gives the references to the community plan and the consistencies, which we can touch base with if you'd like to. But the quick update for you is staff's position is this application is complete, that the requirements of our ordinances have been met. There are 3 additional stipulations that you see bulleted in the staff report on page 7, and that is that the 2 urban open space scenarios are both acceptable. One is that there is a park scenario with a gazebo that would satisfy, but the applicant intends to actually create a leg of the future greenway and move it through there pursuant to the county's approval. So that is consistent with our Greenway Master Plan. Either of those are perfectly acceptable, and that will be part of the next phase if this is approved. The second bullet is that the stormwater plan would have to be approved by the town staff, and that is still pending, but that would absolutely be something that we would want to see. And then all the other red line comments that would typically be associated at this stage would have to be addressed satisfactorily as well. So with that, the staff would be in a position to recommend that this is compliant with our regulations and could be approved. Furthermore, last month, the planning board recommended by vote of 9-0 to recommend approval, subject to the same 3 bullets I just mentioned. Any questions of the staff report or the proposal? Myself or Mr. Bowman are here to answer.
So does the board have any more questions for the parties? Commissioner Munger.
Yeah, there's a reference made to LU 5.3, support infill housing options near services, shopping, employment, yada, so on and so forth, related to rail station. Are we still making reference to the rail station item now that we kind of did that away with that? The TOD? I'm just...
Well, the community plan is still in a, that is there, and then this process, I believe, was initiated before that change was made. So that reference is in there.
Okay.
If the board does not feel that that is one that you want to hang your hat on, it is your prerogative.
All right. I mean, just thinking out loud, should there...
The change does not go into effect until June.
Fair point. I will let it go.
Any other questions? As a reminder, this board is tasked with deciding if, based on competent material, substantial evidence presented at the hearing before this board, this proposal meets the applicable standards. If the applicant meets their burden of producing competent material and substantial evidence that the standards in the ordinance will be met, the burden shifts to the other parties. There are no other parties opposing this evening. The application to show by competent material and substantial evidence that the standards in the ordinance will not be met. Let me see if we can cut to the chase. All right. So at this point, is there a motion regarding this request? Commissioner Phillips.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Hill Street subdivision Phase 3 sketch plan to subdivide .401 acres located at the intersection of Hill Street and Huntersville Concord Road at 13895 into 6 townhome lots because the application is complete, complies with all applicable requirements, and is supported by the findings of facts outlined in parts 2 through 4 of the staff report. This approval includes the following conditions. Urban open space is coordinated with Mecklenburg County. The stormwater plan is approved by town engineering staff at the engineering preliminary plan stage, and all other staff comments are addressed.
Is there a second? There is a second. So there is a motion and there is a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Staff will draft, and I will sign a final written decision to reflect the vote and reasoning for this decision. Thank you to everyone attending the hearing regarding regarding the Hill Street subdivision Phase 3. We welcome you to stay for other items on the agenda, and if you're leaving, please do so quietly at this time. Commissioner Boone. Motion to bring back Commissioner Kidwell. Second. There is a second. All those in favor? I guess. Any opposed? Seeing none. If someone would let Commissioner Kidwell know he can come back. Thank you. You're welcome. We will now move to item 10C. Mr. Semino.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have received a request from the developer, Vallejo Bowman LLC, to continue the request till May 16th at 6 p.m. Huntersville Town Hall. However, I understand that the developer is also willing to have a 60-day extension. Is that, so either a 30-day or a 60-day? The 30-day would be May 16th, 6 p.m. here at Huntersville Town Hall, or June 20th would be the 60-day.
Mr. Semino, do you know what we have currently scheduled for the agenda for the 16th?
I do not.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Munger.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to continue the quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing on Vallejo Village until June 20th at 6 p.m. at Huntersville Town Hall.
Is there a second? And there is a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, we will now move to item 10D. Consider decision on petition TA 21-15. Mr. Semino.
Thank you, Mayor. So enter the staff report into the record. This is a text amendment proposed by staff. It would affect the shop front building type and the apartment building type, and it will allow rooftop amenity spaces that exceed the maximum height, 48 feet for the shop front building and 36 feet for the apartment type building. So what you see in yellow, this is what the text amendment would apply to. The text amendment was in your agenda packet, and happy to answer any questions. The staff had recommended approval. The planning board, by a vote of 7-2, recommended approval. And as we mentioned previously at the public hearing, the Huntersville Ordinances Advisory Board did not recommend approval.
They were tied, correct?
Happy to answer any questions.
Before we do that, is there a motion on the floor? Commissioner Phillips?
In considering the proposed amendment, TA 2115, the town board recommends denial. The town board was aware of and considered the planning board's recommendations and any relevant portions of the adopted comprehensive plan. It is not reasonable and in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance because it is inconsistent with the general nature of our townwide open space requirements, the general nature of our townwide height requirements, and the uncertainty of meeting site lighting requirements, specifically light trespass into neighboring properties and neighborhoods. In addition, conditional zoning provides for these situations where a particular use, properly planned, may be appropriate for a particular site, but where the general district has insufficient standards to mitigate the site-specific impacts on surrounding areas. Conditional zoning districts are established on an individual basis at the request of all owners of the property to be included according to the town zoning ordinance.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion on the, I'm sorry. I apologize.
I like that.
I'm just trying to move us along. I apologize. Any questions, any discussion on this one? Commissioner Munger?
Yeah. So one of the things on the, if I remember correctly, on the Huntersville Ordinance Advisory Board, it did not pass. But if I remember correctly, one of the board members on that thought it should be more expansive than it was. So in my opinion, you could argue that HOAB was actually in favor of this. Obviously, planning staff was in favor of this. I struggle with the idea that we're focusing on a 1 square mile radius in a 64 or 62 square mile town. We have to think about how this would affect all areas of town, and instead of focusing on possibly even a single building. I think this is a wonderful thing. I think there is room for compromise on here. One of the things I wasn't entirely in favor was counting some of the rooftop amenity space for open space. Because it is private, that's not really open space, it's not community space, so it shouldn't have been considered that. But there was room for compromise on this, and I find it unfortunate that this is the route we have chosen to take. So I will not support the motion as presented. I would prefer to see it actually be passed. And that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Munger. Commissioner Kovacs?
I would like to say I appreciate your opinion, Commissioner Munger. I actually, I second this, so I am in favor of the motion, but I actually am in favor of it because I do believe that this should be a case-by-case basis based off of one of your points. As you said, you'd like, it's more than just 1 mile. We have 62 square miles. And that's why I do believe it needs to stay a case-by-case basis, because it should come to the board depending on, and us be able to make a decision based on where it's at, not just as an overall blanket statement.
Commissioner Partee?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also in favor of the motion because one of the reasons why I moved down here with my family is because Huntersville has that quaint feel. And I think it has a distinct character that mixes the old country feel within a modern upscale appearance. And, we don't say urban anymore, we say upscale. And as a rooftop amenity, I see a rooftop amenity downtown, uptown, where it's above 10 floors, where folks can sit out, watch the horizon, have a romantic cocktail. And have an unobstructed view of the landscape. Here in Huntersville, anything below 10 stories does not have that fit, does not have that feel. And to be 4 stories above the street just doesn't give the appearance of having that hometown feel. So I'm in favor of the motion, and I agree with the community. You hear the community, and they're not in favor of it, and therefore I'm in favor of the motion of denying.
Commissioner Boone, do you have anything to add?
I do. I have a question for Mr. Semino. If these folks would come with a special use permit, and would that have been a better direction to go versus doing the entire town with a text amendment?
That could be an option. That's not what was proposed, obviously, but that's another, if the conditional rezoning is, as was mentioned in the motion, is an option. And if somebody doesn't want to go that route, they could also ask for a text amendment to allow it as a special use permit. So that is another option.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kidwell?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate it. So I wasn't here for the public hearing. I believe that was the day my son was born. However, a few things, and I might be backtracking or just reminding everybody, this was brought 4 times, 3 or 4 times in front of HOAB. And it wasn't a developer asking for this, this was town staff, which I find that, odd. Usually a developer comes and says, hey, we'd like to do this, and then it goes forward and we make these changes. That being said, I completely support the motion. I agree with Commissioner Phillips and what you said, Jack, special, text amendment or a special use permit, conditional use, or what have you, should be brought up on a case-by-case basis. I'm not a fan of rooftop amenities in general, even having, gone to dinner down in Charlotte, and there's places where you can go out on a balcony and, as Mr. Barty said, and have a nice drink and look at the scape, but when you're 40 stories up or 30 stories up and you're overlooking a city, it's a little bit different when you're 3.5 stories up overlooking the flooded rooftop of the future brewery of downtown. So I will be supporting Commissioner Phillips's motion.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, that was a 5-1 vote. We will now move to item 10E, consider decision on petition TA 2201.
Mayor Bells, it was brought to my attention that on the item that was continued for Vallejo Village, that there had been a previous change to our meeting schedule for Juneteenth. So we likely need to reopen that and correct the meeting date.
Okay, we will do that after this one. We will do that after 10E.
All right, good evening, board. It's great to see you all tonight. My audience apparently left, but I'm going to be presenting TA 2201 and would like to enter my staff report into the record. So TA 2201 will update the zoning ordinance to match 160D's language on the downzoning of property. Local governments had until July 1st, 2021 to adopt ordinance amendments to comply with Chapter 160D. At that date, the rules of 160D apply whether or not the local ordinance has been updated. A text amendment approved in June 2021 encompassed the majority of amendments required to comply with 160D. It did not include the updated language on the downzoning of property, so town attorneys worked with staff to prepare this amendment. The Huntersville Ordinances Advisory Board recommended approval of the text amendment as proposed on January 6th. The public hearing was held March 7th. No one from the public commented. Planning staff recommends approval of the text amendment. The Planning Board recommended approval of the text amendment as proposed on March 22nd. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. First, we will entertain a motion. Commissioner Phillips?
In consideration, the proposed amendment TA 22-01, the town board recommends approval based on the amendment being consistent with all policies of the Huntersville 2040 Community Plan, and it is reasonable and in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance because the amendment is necessary to apply with state legislator.
Is there a second? Commissioner Boone, thank you. Any discussion or any questions? Seeing none. Motion to approve. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
We will now move to item 10F. I'm sorry, no, we are not. We are going to go back,
Can I make that motion?
and please do.
I'd like to make a motion
We have to, yeah, do we have to open the hearing back up?
Yes.
that would be what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Thanks. Motion to reopen item 10C.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? You can't. Wait.
Yeah, I can do this.
Yes, you can. Hold on, I was the wrong one. Any opposed? All right.
Now,
We are now open, and please.
I'd like to make a motion to continue the quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing on Vallejo Village until June 21st at 6 p.m. at Huntersville Town Hall.
All right, motion, and is there a second? Second, Commissioner Boone, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. We will now move on to item 10F, consider adopting edits to the Town Code of Ordinance to comply with SB 300 and remove preempted ordinances in Chapter 112. Ms. Sloop.
Yes, good evening, Board. This is the second setting for this item. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Essentially, we are adding back in language for misdemeanor penalties in the sections of our Town Code of Ordinances that refer back to our blanket penalty section, which is no longer allowed for misdemeanor enforcement. We are also removing one of the chapters that has been preempted that the town can no longer enforce locally.
Okay. Is there a motion for this one? We'll open it up for discussion afterwards, but is there a motion on this one?
I'll do it, shoot. I would like to make a motion to approve the edits to the Town Code of Ordinances to comply with SB 300, remove preemptive ordinances in Chapter 112.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we'll open it up for discussion. Commissioner Kidwell.
Yes, I just want to point out on section 130-01, model glue possession, use regulated. I received a TikTok video from Commissioner Phillips where a teenager, no, actually, I think it's probably, I say teenager, but a young man specifically pointed out weird laws in North Carolina, and this one made the cut because of use by minors regulated, that no person under 16 shall possess or buy any model glue, which I can completely agree with them. That is a weird one, because between the ages of 11 and 16, I built a lot of models and purchased a lot of model glue. So, thank you.
Now you have to have your parent buy them.
Yep.
Well, you've always probably had to have your parent.
No, my parents weren't around.
All right. Any other discussion on this topic? Seeing none, there is a motion and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Wonderful, that was a 6-0 vote. We will now move to our last item of the evening, item 10G. Consider approving purchasing and contracting policies. Ms. Loop.
Yes, good evening again. This item contains quite a bit of material. It was really an effort from the beginning to create an overarching purchasing and contracting policy for town staff to use and have all of the documentation, all of the policies in place in one document. We also needed to implement several uniform guidance policies now that we have received ARPA grant funding, which is subject to all of the federal regulations associated with grant funds at the federal level. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know that this was quite a lengthy document. I did try to include most of the statutory references as well as the Code of Federal Regulation references.
Thank you, Ms. Loop. I noticed that our current policy is only 2 pages long, so this one isn't. It's very thorough. I guess first we will entertain a motion on this one, and then we'll do the second, and then go to discussion. Commissioner Munger?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve purchasing and contracting policies.
Is there a second?
Second.
Now we'll open it up for discussion. Commissioner Kidwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. Loop, I appreciate all the work that was put into this, from 2 pages to well over 130. However, I'll be not supporting this. One of the things for me is the authority of the town manager to award and execute contracts and the amount associated with that. Been a stickler with that. It's under $300,000. Whether it's in the budget or not, I still think that's something that the town board should be doing. So I'm just going to stick with my guns on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Boone?
Yes, just some, Ms. Lupai, some clarification on personnel activity when it comes to, I'm talking from page 60, of the partial funding of federal grants, that there's a paperwork trail that has to be done. Does this have anything to do with our school resource officers?
No, so this would be specific to when you have a federal, well, actually, when you have more than one federal grant, and that the particular employee is working on more than one federal grant. For ARPA, the case is typically going to be that the funds are being used for the provision of general government services, and that particular employee would only be working on one grant objective. So if the employee is working on multiple grant objectives, that's when the personnel activity report would have to be submitted.
Just to follow up, if we send a K-9 down to the Charlotte Airport to help them out, and they're using grant funds, would we be satisfying the PAR funding on this?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you saying that that particular employee would be working on multiple grants?
Well, let's say they go down to the Charlotte Airport and working with the FBI and Charlotte Police Department and other agencies for for drugs and stuff like that. See, I don't know if there's grant.
I think you're discussing the forfeiture funds, which is
I
different.
understand what forfeiture funds are, but if it's, I'm worried about how they get the salary back to the town of Huntersville. Because it says that there's a paperwork trail that the required matched in funding.
Oh, okay, I see what you're asking now. So this would also depend on whether or not we were using those federal grant funds to provide a local match for a federal project that's utilizing federal grant funds. But essentially, all this is just a more involved version of the time certification. So whereas the time certification is just asking that they verify their time and sign off on their timesheets, this just asks to see a more detailed schedule, essentially.
Thank you for your explanation.
Sure.
Any other, Commissioner Partee?
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Loop, I just noticed, I looked, when I was reviewing my agenda package, on page 111, we have the Town of Huntersville Minority Business Participation Outreach Plan. Is this a new policy that the Town of Huntersville is instituting, or is there one that's presently in operation?
So this is one that I actually worked on as well when I came on board and worked to implement with Staff Attorney Jacob Glass. And so it is newish, meaning that it was implemented in the last year or so. But we did make updates to this policy as well to clarify the use of the affidavits. We had some confusion with some of our bidding, our people that were submitting bids. So the edits to this particular policy clarify that section.
Thank you. And who's going to administer the outreach program for minority businesses?
I believe that that responsibility falls with Assistant Manager Bobby Williams.
In a new policy? Okay. Can we keep me updated on that, Mr. Williams? And I'd like to work with you on that also. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? There is a motion and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much. This binder. We will now move to mayor and commissioner reports to close out the evening. Let's see here. Get my reading glasses. So from the EDC, I'll just quickly give you my report. The EDC is currently working on 42 projects. 20 of those are right here in Huntersville. Last couple of items I want to go through. The Loch Norman Games, I'm sure you will hear about it, but they were a huge success. I was out there Saturday and Sunday and wanted to thank Commissioner Kovacs for running into her and volunteering at the Information Center, along with Miss Kathy Jones. Thank you. I saw you out there too. It was a wonderful, even though it was bitterly cold on Saturday, the wind was ripping. It was such a successful game, and it was something that the community really did need to see out of Rural Hill after a few years of everything being shut down and locked up. Want to remind everyone that the jazz concert series is continuing. It's this Saturday on the 23rd, so come out for it. And I will be participating with the MTC on April 27th. That will be a virtual meeting. And then the last thing I would like to throw out there for folks is I had an opportunity to meet with the pastor over at St. Mark's Episcopal Church over off of Huntersville, Mount Holly, Huntersville Road. And they are doing an event on, I didn't write the date down. I believe it's the last Saturday of May. Let me double check myself here real quick. I'm sorry, the last
Saturday of April, so April the 30th, starting at 2 o'clock. But it's a Barbados event, and they are opening up their church and their grounds for the community to come out and participate in their Barbados. So there will be lots of food and steel drums and just the whole Barbados vibe happening out there on the 30th. So mark your calendars, and if you'd like to participate, I believe they've probably got a Facebook page out there, but wanted to throw that out there. They were so excited about this event and wanted to make sure the community knew about it. And with that, we'll flip it over to some commissioner reports. Commissioner Munger, we'll start with you tonight.
Sneaking up on me.
Got to keep you on your toes.
Excellent. So mine's going to be short and sweet. Met last week with the Public Arts Commission. One of the things we did approve in the consent agenda is a project by the Girl Scouts. They're going to be doing some artwork on some of our picnic tables, or one of our picnic tables, over at Holbrooks Park. It's a really cool concept. You'll see it in your packet. Love the idea. Just trying to give a little notoriety to them. And my only other comment is, as always, if you have the opportunity to give, please consider supporting our local nonprofits. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Partee.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on April 6th, I spoke before the Huntersville 101 class. Thank you, Ms. Strickland, for inviting me over at the Public Safety Department. Spoke before the class and gave insight on my law enforcement experience and what I went through when I was in law enforcement. On April 7th, was at Habitat for Humanity. They had a reception at the Ada Jenkins building in Davison. Present was Mayor Linda Bales. We had good fellowship, and I met a Miss Triggs, who's the advocate manager, and she will be reaching out to Ms. Strickland for a tour of our facility here. As always, I advocate for and push for gun safety for those households where children are living. Accidental discharges cause a serious physical injury, and death. HPD has free gun safety locks. Organizations and individuals can contact the police department or send me an email at dparthuntersville.org. And finally, I want to bring awareness to the nonprofit organization Cool Kids Clubhouse in honor of Dan Jensen, located here in Huntersville. Cool Kids Clubhouse mission is to devote to improving the quality of life for pediatric cancer patients. Check out their website and donate. Thank you.
Commissioner Phillips.
I just have a quick update from Visit Lake Norman. And as a side note, Cornelius and Davidson are giving this update tonight too. And I think it's great because all the items are Huntersville. The Lake Norman Summer Lacrosse Classic is coming back to Berry Park in Huntersville for the first time. The Youth Lacrosse Tournament will be held May 21st to the 22nd. The Lake Norman Fall Lacrosse Classic was held at Berry Park for the first time this past November and had 24 travel teams from 5 states. The International Senior Softball Association's Eastern Spring Nationals return April 27th through May 1st. Plays will be held at Bradford Park in Huntersville in addition to other regional parks. This year marks the first time play will begin on Wednesday. Last year's event had 58 travel teams from 10 states. Bright Fire Music and Art Festival is coming to Rural Hills Saturday, April 30th. This is a new festival, and it is a kaleidoscope celebration of life, hope, and renewal. Festival will run from 4 to 10 p.m., and tickets start at $25. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Kidwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. CRTPO is not having a meeting, but I was fortunate to have a meeting with Commissioner Boone, David Hill, a few other people, Bobby Williams from town, over various road projects, policies dealing with that. But the one thing that caught my interest, and Bobby Williams sent me a link to it, Wilson, North Carolina has instituted something called microtransit, which I found very interesting. It's public Uber. And that's something that CATS is going to be looking at within the area. And I think the really cool thing about it, it's affordable. So if anybody here has used Uber, you're looking at anywhere from within the town of Huntersville, anywhere from $7 to $12 one way. Wilson has instituted a program where you can buy a prepaid card, or if you're paying with a credit card, it would be $1 a ride. So if you needed to get from your house to, let's say, Birkdale for dinner date and you're going to have one or two wines and you wanted to make sure that you're not driving, being responsible, you could take that ride. So as this develops, we'll be sharing more, but it's a long way down the path. But I think it's a great start for the region. Thank you.
Commissioner Kovacs.
The Huntersville Chamber will have their member meeting tomorrow, April 19th at 5:30 PM. It'll be in Main Street Coffee, and the event is sponsored by Bristle and Brush. The chamber will provide wine, cheese, and crackers, and you can purchase goodies at the coffee shop counter. Lake Norman Chamber this past Friday held the discussion with North Carolina Senator Joyce Krawick. Senator Krawick is the chair of the Senate Healthcare Committee and addressed healthcare issues and additional legislation. This was recorded, so you can view this Focus Friday presentation on the Chamber's YouTube channel. And the Lake Norman Chamber's Diversity Council will explore several topics over the course of the year dealing with equity, diversion, and inclusion. The first of those quarterly lunch and learns will take place tomorrow, Tuesday, April 19th, from noon to 1:15 at the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce. While intended for chamber members, the program's open to the public. They just ask you to RSVP. Those who can attend can view it live on Zoom, and to obtain the link, you can call the chamber. And lastly, the chamber will be celebrating Small Business Week, the week of May 2nd to the 7th.
Thank you. Commissioner Boone.
I got a 15-minute comment here.
And I just started to say, saving the best for last.
First of all, nothing from the fire department's report, but to just dovetail on what Commissioner Kidwell said about this program in Wilson, North Carolina. Spoke with Vicki Sawyer. She's a a state senator, and she is well aware of this project, where if you have a small child and they miss the bus, and they want to get to school, they have a number to call where this Uber will come and pick them up at their house. There's a lot of safety things that I've got questions about this, but this program is going to be here to stay. It's many years in the future, like Rob said, but I think it's an answer to a lot of questions. That's all my report.
Thank you. Are there any closing comments this evening? Closing comment, Commissioner
Yes.
Phillips?
So, the tiaras in question that people have seen tonight, they are in honor of Eleanor, who went by Wookie. She was a resident of the Lake Norman area, and she was a trailblazer who made it possible for women like us to sit up here. And even though she had a voice and wasn't somebody who was subjected to as many adversities, she made sure that she dedicated her life to helping minorities and people who needed a break in life, and she advocated like heck and dedicated so much of her life to making the world a better place. And they say, there's this thing about queens, they don't tell you your tiara is crooked, they fix it. So we are honoring Miss Wookie tonight, and we are so grateful that she was on this earth.
Thank you, Commissioner Phillips. Couldn't have said that better. Any other closing comments this evening? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening.